Hello, welcome to this first part of my book, Yoga and Somatics for Immune and Respiratory Health. For this first part here, we'll look at the more theoretical side, and in the next video, we will look at the practices within this first part. So in this part, healthy defenses, we look at the realms, the territory that the immune and respiratory systems occupy, how those interface and sit within the context of the whole body, so that we're looking at how we support our boundaries and our breath, and particularly on the mouth, the nose, the throat as gateway for immune defense. And obviously within the yoga canon and breath practices, this is something we can really largely support people and their health. And included in that, that's the way that we really tune into our nervous system states through the rhythm of the breath, the anatomy of this as well, how we support the architecture that holds us, the organism that holds up this being of the breath and the ribs and the body underneath, etc. So looking at immune territory first, and you can see I've taken out kind of screenshots of the book, and you'll see them in parts. It's not the fully finished version, so a few typos there. But you can see from diagrams like this that it's fully got a huge amount of diagrams throughout. I think it's really important to have kind of visuals of this kind of stuff, but at the same time recognize that these are two-dimensional representations of our beings that are living, breathing, moving, etc. So part of this starting diagram for the immune system is to show that it's a body-wide thing. It's absolutely everywhere, and every single part of us, all parts of us need to be protecting themselves at all times, and a fully responsive system that we can really interface with and really needs us to be moving, breathing as we're designed for its full health. And within the immune system, there are two branches, the innate, immediately responsive immune system that's going underneath at all times, always active, immediately responsive. And then we have the more slower branch, if you like, the acquired immunity, which tends to get a little bit more talk, because it's often the stuff of specific antibodies. But within our yoga practices, it's the innate stuff that we can really particularly tune into, which is incredibly important, supportive and necessary for the quality of our acquired immunity. And then what we're looking at here in terms of a holistic systemic view, which yoga practice, yoga philosophy sits within, is where we bring that together in terms of breath awareness practices and tune into through breath, touch, states of our nervous system, sounding, many ways that we tune into at any given moment. And moving towards the respiratory system and how that interplays within those branches of the immune system. And we'll later look on particularly how important that is in terms of the microbiome, our beneficial bacteria. Can see here, this is the respiratory system and that territory of the lungs, which have a huge immune component. They have to, they're taking in air, they're taking in outside something that's from the outside to the exterior, where those potential kind of invaders can come from, and where we need to have these boundaries of the lungs and all of those branchings out from there, but particularly within throughout practices where we're looking at particularly nasal breathing and relationship with the architecture in the head and the face, so key for our breath, for our nervous system states, for our immunity, how that whole respiratory system is from the nose all the way down. And it's often stress and tension into the sinuses, the temples, the jaw that can really hinder that. So we look at that relationship particularly to the diaphragm and the lymphatics. So lots of the practices throughout are undulating, have a focus on moving around the ribs, awareness around the diaphragm, digestive organs below, because we're also looking at the microbiome as a large part of our immune defenses, and actually how we modulate things like energy, mood, appetite as well. Our lymphatic system needs movement to get going, it branches out into all of us, and our immunity right out to the skin, and how we can then interface back from skin, the periphery, back into center. And all of this really tied up in how we move through life, our responses to the stresses, the traumas that come in, and how we're able to have a relationship with those and resolve and even come down the other side from those. And particularly this part, and coming to nasal breathing, architecture in the throat, the back of the oral cavity, and a focus on nasal breathing within pranayama, within breath practices, within yoga, but also the huge amount of scientific body of work behind how important nasal breathing is for all aspects of our health. So this book is, it's very fully referenced, a lot of references both to all of these issues, all of these facets from a kind of yoga point of view, kind of Ayurveda point of view, but also the scientific literature coming in as well, which really bears up how important we can be as yoga teachers and yoga therapists for all-round health, as well as immune and respiratory health, and the bench mark that nasal breathing has within that. And so the relationship between the exhalation and the inhalation, of course, is explained throughout, and we'll come into the next section, how they relate to stress and inflammation. And starting off here, moving into both the physical and the subtle practices through looking at the 4 stages of breath: the inhale, the pause, the exhale, the pause, and how important the pauses will be throughout. Both this recognition of the pause, the still point, the meditative still point at the end of each breath, the inhale and the exhale, those the full cycles, and within our practice to take time, space to recognize, and those times that are restorative and allow us to come to healing and optimal health. So thank you for joining me on that. We'll come in the next video to the practices within part 1.